So, good evening, everybody. It's lovely to see some of you again. I'm sure you're here for the second session in creating artistic and painterly images with your phone. Please do ask any questions, then I can pose them to Charles and Melissa if they are pertinent at a particular time through the evening. But there will also be time at the end for questions when Charles and Melissa have finished the presentation. So let me just formally introduce our speakers. Charles Needle is an award-winning fine art photographer based in Colorado, known for his unique eye for design and artistic interpretation. As a seasoned author, speaker, and workshop leader, he brings a wealth of experience to his craft. Melissa Needle, a full-time professional photographer, began her journey at the age of 12 with her family's camera. In addition to her expertise with traditional cameras, she has become highly skilled in smartphone photography, having lectured at numerous camera clubs and the New England Council of Camera Clubs annual conference on the subject. Both Charles and Melissa are experienced in using phone apps to capture and process artistic and impressionistic images. It's reassuring to know that they, like us, they take hundreds of shots in pursuit of the perfect image with a high failure rate. Yet when you view their galleries and the images they will be showcasing tonight, their mastery becomes clear. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us tonight. And I'm going to pass over to you, Charles and Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful to be back. And how many of you, I would assume almost everyone here almost was attended our part one or saw the recording of part one? Great. Excellent. Thank you. So this time we're going to talk about painterly imagery, but in a little bit different way. Instead of shooting apps, we're going to talk about apps that you can do post-processing of your images and make them look painterly. So a little bit different, but very similar results coming. Anything you want to add to what
Nope,
I
we're
just said?
glad you joined us. And so we're going to talk about share screen there.
Yep.
We're rusty. We had a live workshop last week. So
Here we go.
we're back to virtual. Yeah, perfect. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about some painterly apps. So these apps that we're going to show you today are apps that you would use once you get back home. I don't typically use them in the field. So these are images that you've shot in the field, and then you get back home, you're going to use your apps. And we're going to talk about 4 in particular apps. And then at the end, we should have time to go over another creative app called the Double Exposure in the Snapseed app. There's a tool called Double Exposure that you can utilize to create some other worldly images as well too. So we'll have time to speak about that at the end.
And the beauty of what we're going to discuss this evening is every single one of these apps, there are only 4 we're going to go over, but we're going to go over each one in great depth, can be used for Android phones as well. So unlike some of our other presentations where not every app we mentioned could be used with an Android phone, this presentation, that's possible. So very exciting if there are any Android users watching the recording. So these are the 4 apps we'll talk about. And of course, when you're in the App Store or in Google Play Store, make sure you get the correct one with the right icon. There are sometimes some copycat apps that look very similar, but they're not quite the same app as what we're discussing here. So we'll go over each one and show examples first, and then we'll do kind of a live demonstration. Prisma is one that we really love. Color Splash. This one you can actually add color back in from a black and white image. Impresso, Artista Impresso, and Waterlog. So we'll go over each one and what they do and what they are. So with Prisma, this one is a free download for only 3 days though. And then of course they make you subscribe, but it's not anything that will break the bank. I think with the pound conversion there, that's actually a little lower than $7.99 a month, if I'm doing the math right. And anyway, So it's available, as we said, for both platforms, iPhone and Android. And this one has 500 plus art styles.
And actually, I think now it's 700 plus. So you can go
Yeah,
nuts with this
it's
app with the amount of
very
styles. They
addictive
add
too.
new styles all the time. So,
And you can control the strength or intensity of each of those styles. It has some built-in frames, frame meaning borders that are presets, and then some portrait styles for doing selfies and other styles always being added, as Missy said.
so here's an example of Venice, Italy. We'll actually be going to Italy next year, which if anyone wants to join us, that's a fun trip. But this is just a shot I did from a bridge. The light was nice with the setting sun. And it's a nice image to begin with, but I really liked the Painterly app. And I think with all the impressionistic painters that came out of Europe, especially in Italy, I really liked what this did to the image. One of just some flowers. So I don't know, sometimes you take what I call boring images. This is just a kind of a boring image I took of some flowers. And I don't know, on its own, it's not a very great image, but I just like the abstractness of the painterly style that Prisma added to it. And here's one, I should actually put the actual image in there because you wouldn't believe where I started to where I ended, but this was a fish in a pond in a greenhouse. And so the reflection from the roof was reflecting in the water. And so I grabbed this just straight image. And then I really thought it was kind of needed some painterly aspects to it. So I edited it in Snapseed to get a little more color and a little more definition. And then I added it into the Prisma app to pop out, and this popped out with the purples and the greens and turned into a really great image.
And there's an element of unpredictability here that's really fun. You just don't know until you start tapping the various presets what the look is going to be. Here's another one I did from probably the same trip to Venice. Very different. I mean, I would really pretty much call this digital art, not necessarily a photograph. We could talk about that in a more philosophical way with the Q&A if you'd like. But anyway, still a photo as far as the base of this image, so to speak. But it was just fun to see, what styles you can apply. And same with these trees. These were near our home, just a little different look to the image.
And here's an example of kind of, you can take images that come out of your big camera. So this was an image I took using my Olympus. I put it, transferred it to my phone, put it into the Prisma app. And then actually afterwards, I brought in, you can see there's like a textured background there, which I did in Snapseed, which we'll demonstrate at the end. So you can actually combine a bunch of concepts and apps together.
So the color in that background was coming from the
There's
scene
actually
itself,
rocks.
the
Yeah. So
original
I
scene.
actually defocused that image with my big camera. And in defocusing it, I got the cool colors from the rocks to show through. So it really just stylized the image with the artistic filter from Prisma.
And the sky's the limit. You could paint back in a sharp flower here if you wanted to, maybe keep the entire stem kind of blurry, but make the flower sharper if you wanted
Yep.
to. And then this was on our recent, we do a huge English garden trip every other year. So not next year, but in 26, if you want to join. 14 gardens plus a day at Chelsea Flower Show. And some of the gardens we visit are private. This happened to be a public one. It was Hidcote Manor. And you may have seen this scene walking down the path, maybe not in this unusual way, but that is what happened there with that one. And next time we will be talking about close-ups using the phone. And this is just a close-up I made of, I don't know the flower name here, but anyway, it made it look very interesting, as far as the texture that it added and patterns there. So you just never know what you're going to get. So it's a lot of fun to just add a little bit different element to your image making.
And sometimes they can kind of take the distractions out. So this was an image that I did in Italy of the beautiful cypress trees. There were some cool poppies in the foreground, but there were a lot of grasses and the actual image was kind of cluttered. So in putting it in Prisma and giving it different artistic filters, I was able to kind of declutter the image and make it something look more artistic.
And if you wanted later in Snapseed, you could get rid of like some of the grasses there that are in that yellow area if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But it looks kind of wild and natural the way it is now too.
And here's another one from Kingsbury Garden, which is up in Canada. And this, I liked what it did to this one with, it was a foggy morning, so it kind of kept the fog. but added kind of a nice painterly look to the image.
So you can be subtle with these, styles or very bold, as you've seen in some of the images we've shown.
And I'll show you too, there's actually a slider in the app when we open up the app and demonstrate it. There's a slider that you can actually give it how much strength you want for that particular artistic style. So you can give it very little, which gives your image a more realistic look, or a lot, in this case here, giving it a really more artistic look with this bee on the flower here. And here's just another one. Again, I think this image was kind of really cluttered with when you look at the actual image with the plants kind of going every which way. And by putting it in the Prisma and adding a different filter to it, I kind of decluttered it in a sense, giving it a more artistic look.
And I think the purple of the allium really stands out here, whereas in the original image, it might not have stood out as much.
And here's another example. I think we talked about this a little bit last time, and I'll use this as a demonstration at the end to show you how to give that filter look to it when we do the double exposure and Snapseed. But here's one that I took the image, put it into Prisma, and I really liked what it did here with the final image. This is another one. So I like to do a lot of compositing. So this is an example of the fall color. We had some snow on the scene, and so I put the whole image into Prisma. I got the cool fall color look to the tree, but then the whole image kind of looked a little cluttered to me. So I brought it into Snapseed, gave it the kind of sepia black and white look to the rock and the normal trees. You can see they look kind of normal. And then I did a double exposure to really bring out that fall color in the tree, and I can demonstrate that at the end. And another one, again, I think kind of my theme for this would be kind of decluttering something. So this was, I saw a heart shape in the tree. But if you just looked at the image itself, you probably might not have seen the heart because it's a very cluttered image. So I created first I put the image into Prisma, got what I liked in the heart area of the tree, saved that. Then I put the image into Snapseed, gave it a black and white look to it. And then I used the double exposure tool in Snapseed to really bring the heart from Prisma into the image.
Very cool.
And then this is just an example of that slider that we'll show you. So this is Great Dixter, one of the English gardens that we visit on the tour. And I actually slid the slider back. So you can see the house actually almost looks more like it's the normal image. And the poppies are starting to look more normal rather than a more painterly look. So again, that's that slider giving it how much of the style for that look that I want. So this was kind of, the slider was closer to the reality part of that.
And the sky still looks pretty cool.
Yes. And here's another one. I think if you look really closely, you can see that it has a painterly look to it. But again, this is again using that slider to give me a more realistic look. So you don't have to go completely wild with these styles, but you can if you want to. So it's kind of a fun app.
So the second app we wanted to talk about and highlight with you is Color Splash. I think someone might need to mute.
Yeah, I'm trying to find.
Great. So Color Splash, not very expensive, and it is available, like all of these apps are today, for the iPhone and Android. And this is one, it reminds me of hand coloring, if any of you did hand coloring back in the day of black and white. Darkroom, where you have a black and white image, but then you can bring color or paint color back into a certain portion of the image. And there are 4 different brushes that you can do this with, and we'll demonstrate all of this for you shortly. And you can even adjust the size of each brush and the hue and so forth. So again, back in Venice, I chased this guy for close to a mile, I think, and finally got just the right stride in his foot and the whole thing. And I was in my mind, while I was chasing him, kind of pre-visualizing just bringing the red of that accordion back into the image and having the whole rest of the image be black and white. So that was kind of fun, that one.
So this is also in Venice. So I think going back to my decluttering an image, I really like this scene. And so really putting it into the Color Splash app, I was able to emphasize the red and the lamp there back at its natural color. And this app does have kind of a more sepia to black and white look too that you can give it as well. So really just declutter that image so your eye is focused right there on the bench. So think about images where you might want to really just focus the eye somewhere, and that's really where Color Splash is going to come in handy for you. So here's a great example of that. I was in Monet's garden, and sitting with these little tiny, tiny little flowers in amongst the lavender. It was a lovely little afternoon to smell the lavender while I was shooting this flower. And I noticed that one of the little stamens looked like a heart, which I really liked. So, and I will show you this when we open up Color Splash, but when you import the image into Color Splash, it'll immediately turn the entire image black and white there on, like, example there on the right. You then just basically take your finger and paint over where you would like the color to come back. So you can see here the color of the stamen is now yellow, where I have unmasked and let the yellow back through. But as we all know, hearts are either pink or red. So I then use the hue slider to be able to turn that pink. So you can actually change the color that's coming through, which is kind of fun. So that was the final image I ended up with.
And it kind of warmed the whole image up, which I
Yeah.
think enhances it as well.
And I guess keeping on the themes with the hearts, we were in Sedona, Arizona. Had a lovely morning up on Bell Rock, one of my favorite places to hike and just sit and meditate and see the world. And on our way back down, we actually found this naturally carved heart in the rock, which was amazing to see in this giant place.
Hard to believe that's naturally carved there, but
Yeah,
it is.
fabulous.
That's what people.
And so I really wanted to emphasize that. So basically, that is the natural color of the rock in Sedona. So Color Splash enabled me to just paint back the natural rock color in that black and white image. And once you start using Color Splash, you'll actually see images where you'll be like, that's the one I want to use it for. So when I saw this boat, I knew the red kayak and the blue tarp over there over the sail was really what I wanted to draw your attention to. And so I was able to bring those colors back in Color Splash. Then I also added it into an app called Distressed FX Plus, which we won't talk about today, to give it kind of that texturized look. Another one, again, just drawing. I like this image on its own, obviously the green and the rain, but I really thought it would be cool to just center your eye right to that pink water lily.
And this was at Board Hill Garden, another garden we were visiting on this tour, and it started to rain as it usually does or often does, but that added so much to the image, just those raindrops in this case.
Yeah. And then in thinking about your flower photography, I think oftentimes you take that single flower, but you might think there's a lot of clutter behind it. So if you look at this image, I really love this flower, but behind it is all the greens of the plants going every which way. And so it can be very distracting for the eye. And so I'm putting it in Color Splash now. I've really just isolated that color. And you kind of, the background, even though it's cluttered, it kind of falls away and you can really focus on that flower. Just another one, and this is also in a pick manner. I really just wanted to emphasize the beautiful purple wisteria that was kind of resting atop the statue's head.
It was like that when we saw it. We didn't place it there. It's wild.
And then here, just emphasizing the sunflowers. I like this image on its own with the red brick, but it's kind of fun that you can just pop out that yellow, and you can also pop out the green stems to just really isolate a subject.
So we took a course on how to freeze flowers in ice. It was a lot of fun. Great winter activity, of course, or summer, but especially in the winter. And anyway, so I loved this delphinium here, and it's a beautiful image as it is. And the background was kind of a teal colored piece of paper, actually, that was behind the block of ice and kind of really shone through there. And so nothing wrong with that image, but I thought, maybe this is a candidate for Color Splash. So I did convert the whole thing to black and white as the app does first, and then paint back some of the flowers in there. So I just thought, oh, that's kind of a different way of showing it.
And it does lead your eye now. So you can also think about leading lines in an image. So if you have one strong point of color, that's one thing, but also maybe a leading line of color somewhere can also work well in images.
So Artista Impresso, one of my favorites. Now, this is part of a family of apps made by a company called Jixi Pix, and we're going to show you their website in a minute. But they do all kinds of Painterly apps, and once you've learned one, you can actually buy them as a bundle as well. Once you've learned one, though, it's pretty easy to learn how to use the rest because the interface is exactly the same for all of their apps. So knowing about Jixi Pix apps is really powerful if you're into this sort of painterly look to your images. So it is available for iPhone and iPad, and this particular one is a standalone desktop editing app as well. They do make an Artista Impresso Pro we haven't downloaded that one. I'm not sure the difference between this one and the Pro. However, both of us suspect the main difference is that you just get more filters or more painting styles in the Pro version. But anyway, someday we'll investigate that. And then, as I said, gallery style paintings here. It is meant to kind of give that impressionistic look to your images. And you can have very much control over the strokes and the sizes of each stroke, the brush, the strength, et cetera, and control the texture of the canvas. It also has an option to make it look as if it's printed on linen paper versus the texture of a canvas.
So this is a great example of something that you might be able to salvage an image. So a lot of times I think if you're like me, you take an image because of the way the timing felt or the experience you were having, but you get home and you're like, what would I ever do with that image? So this is a great example of that. We were in Hawaii watching the sunset. It was a beautiful evening. You could just hear the water rustling and grab this image. Arguably, I mean, you look great, Charles, there shooting the water, but I don't think I'd
It's a great image. Come on.
I don't think I'd hang this on my wall, to be honest. But it was an amazing evening. So I put the photo first in Snapseed. I kind of got rid of the rocks. And then I put it into the Artista Impresso app, and this popped out. And I thought, wow, like that conveys the feeling that we had that night, kind of a magical evening watching the sunset. And that is something that I would probably consider framing and putting on the wall.
And then here's another one where I just dialed the strength up pretty high, and I wanted to really emphasize the texturization here of the canvas. But it was just, a pretty straight, literal sort of shot of this lotus, and I just loved kind of what it did here, and the colors really popped as well. This is another one, a private garden on Cape Cod, a couple of summers ago, I think. And I decided to use one of the styles where you get a very loose, flowing brushstroke look, like this one. And of course, if I wanted, I could take it further and paint the little shed back in sharp if I wanted. But anyway, it gives you a sense of what's possible with this app. And then this one was another one from Monet's garden, and love this tree and love the sharp image of it. But I decided, hey, what would happen if I made this look painterly the way Monet might have painted it? Anyway, so, and as you can see, there are all kinds of edges and frames that you can choose from. And you could even control the width of those frames and all of that. But it really does, to me, sort of pop out and look as if it's printed on watercolor paper or just canvas, really. Same with this classic view, of course, of the famous bridge in Monet's garden. Um, I wish they would let us come in with private access. We had that privilege for about 20 plus years, but I think after COVID, things changed. But anyway, I'll keep asking. So if you're interested in going in there with private access someday, you can get on our email list if you'd like. But it's a magical garden, even with tourists there, even more magical, I think, without. But I could, if I had wanted, paint the bridge back sharp here if I really wanted to. And then this one, believe it or not, I think I did show this one last time when we were talking about using Average Camera Pro as a shooting app. So this was an image I made with Average Camera Pro to begin with. It was actually just some wrapping paper, and I did the whole rotate and zoom thing. And I liked it fine, just as a straight image, but then I started to think about adding, the painterly style to it, and it just sort of took it to another level. And I'll actually be demonstrating this image for you later. And then this was in our backyard, and we talked last time about with digital zoom versus optical zoom. With digital zoom, you are losing pixels when you zoom all the way in. That's one of the big disadvantages of the iPhone. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a huge reach for telephoto yet. I just got the 16 Pro Max, so we can talk about that at the end if anybody's interested in knowing how I like that camera versus the other ones. But pinching all the way in, but adding this effect here really makes it salvageable. And then, of course, now with upresing, you nice print.
Another one of Great Dexter, just a different view from the back of the house there with all the beautiful poppies. Really liked what it did here. as far as the painting. And here's one from Keukenhof. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, but this is in Holland, which we'll be going next year in April to see the tulips again. And this one was cool to mask some of the people. So this, if you're familiar with this garden, I got down real low because there's a lot of people milling around. That's actually a pathway there on the other side of those tulips. So I got down low, but that still didn't get rid of all the people. So I kind of tried to get rid of them, but then it kind of made the image look weird. So I thought, well, I'll put it in Artista Impresso and give it a painterly look, and poof, the people are now gone. So it salvaged my image. Here's another one that just, I love the lily sticking up all by itself in amongst the daisies. And this one gave it a little more realistic look to it, but liked what it did there. And here's one from Gravetye Manor at the end of our English garden tour. Really loved walking around the grounds there and seeing the lupins, and with the window in the background, I liked the framing of this and the painterly look that it gave to it.
So the last app that we'll talk about and demonstrate for you is called Waterlog. Again, not too expensive, available for iOS and Android. You can add watercolor effects, just as the name sort of implies. I love their little logo there of the whale. There are 14 preset styles. So you can even control, the wetness, so to speak, of the brush, and the fact that there are pen outlines and colors and so forth, and even control the borders, the width of the border, the lightness, the detail that's in the border. And I'm not sure how popular Oprah Winfrey is in the UK, or if you all know the famous talk show host here in the US named Oprah. Anyway, this was one of her holiday pick apps at one point. She always picks things for the holidays. So when Oprah says it's good, we usually pay attention over here. Yeah.
So this is a great example again of another salvaging an image in a moment. We were on a cruise ship, and I don't know if you've ever been on a cruise ship. We were kind of down low, and that window there you see in our cabin is probably 5 inches thick. It's got sea salt crust all over it, and the boat was leaving port. So there's no way I would have had time to grab my real camera, get up to the top of the ship to get a great image of this really cool lighthouse that I saw. So I took the shot out the window, which you can see here. It's a terrible shot out my horrible window. And so I put that into Snapseed. I removed the little triangle shaped building there that you can see at the top. And then I bumped up the saturation a lot because my emphasis was on those red roof of the building and the lighthouse. And then I put it into Waterlog, and it kind of salvaged what I saw, and what I saw with my eye, the art out the window. So I liked what it did there. And this is another example. I was a passenger in a car, so I wasn't driving, and we were going through a really beautiful winter scene. And as you can imagine, in the winter, the salt on the car, and I didn't want to roll down the window because I think it was very cold. So I shot out the window of this really beautiful trees, and so it's not a great image, but in putting it into Waterlog kind of salvaged the image and gave me what I saw.
And then I just tried this for fun with a coneflower just to see what would happen. But you can see the variation of styles, all kinds of different styles you can do with this. Same here with this scene from Tuscany. We'll be going there too next year.
And then back to my favorite flower, the poppy. You can see here, again, this is another image that I took with my big camera, put it onto my phone, and really loved what it did here with the watercolor. Again, this image in reality is very cluttered with the background. And so really liked that this was able to kind of mute that background and give me a beautiful image.
And I particularly love the texture in the paper here, so to speak. It looks like we're really looking at a watercolor painting. It's cool what it did there. This was I photographed a fern on against a white background and then brought it into this app just to see what would happen, and got the very graphic representation of the fern there. And I kind of like the colorization too. This was from a garden in Massachusetts, just kind of a statue there, and decided to see what this particular filter would do to it.
Here's an allium, again, from my big camera. Liked what it did here with the really dark greens and light purples. I liked what happened here. And another image that was kind of cluttered a little bit. So this is, we were fortunate enough to see one of the super blooms several years ago out in California of the California poppies. And I was just fascinated by how the little stem has kind of that pink ringlet around it. And so I really liked what this did it in terms of kind of making it more abstract. Here's where an idea that you might want to try. I stuck my camera shooting straight up through the flowers. So this is like you're a grasshopper or something looking up through to the sky. So try that sometime and then just put it in the watercolor app to give it a different look. And side looking at some daisies, really liked what it did here. And now we're back in Italy with the wisteria. I love wisteria. So just love this kind of gives it that old look of the old buildings in Venice with the wisteria hanging down. Just another look with some flowers. So there aren't a lot of manipulations to do in waterlog, but one thing you can do is you can change the brush stroke, I guess you'd call it, from like a 2 to a 10. And we'll show you that when we open it up. But basically, it gives you how detailed versus more abstract look the waterlog style will give you. And so in here, it would probably give you more or less of those black lines. And if you didn't like those black lines, you could take them into Snapseed and erase them afterwards. And here's another example of just a double exposure that I did. So that the butterfly was landed on this beautiful bush, but it was very cluttered in the background. So I put the image into waterlog, and then I took the waterlog image and the real image of the butterfly and combined them using double exposure and Snapseed, and I brought back out the real life butterfly in the image.
And here is the web page for JixiePix, and I'm actually going to bring this up live to show you. But if you do want to make a note of this site, it's jixiepix.com, and then you would just go to the under products, I think it is. They show you the mobile apps. But anyway, let me stop sharing here, and we'll go show you this. Actually, that's what I want to share. So as you can see here on this page, some of the apps that we've mentioned already are here. This is the pro version of Impresso. It will tell you on here, if they're available for iOS and Android. Most of them are. However, there's some that are just for the iPad and things like that. So there's all kinds of different effects. And like I said, once you've learned the interface for one of them, real easy to use the rest of the apps. So Dramatic Black and White is an excellent one, and so is Artista Oil, if you like the look of oil painting. And they even have something with comics, and it gets crazy here. Snow days, you could create a snowy day from a not so snowy photo. And rain, you guys don't need that one. Save the $3 on that one. But anyway, so lots of fun with some of these apps here made by JixiePix. So now we're going to pause a minute and do a demonstration of these apps. Are there any questions that you guys have while we transition to that?
More views of 16 Pro Max, please.
Well, it's a whole rabbit hole we could go down together. But anyway, for many months, used the 15 Pro Max. In fact, a year, I always try and get the latest phone. And if you already, my take on it is if you already have the 15 or even, I would argue, maybe even the 14, no reason really to consider upgrading. There's great video quality with the 16. They've improved the audio. Yes, it does have 48 megapixel super wide imagery that's possible with the 16. And there's a fun little photo capture button on the side. But so far, I haven't mastered that or learned how to use it in a way that I think is going to benefit me. So in general, I think it's fine to stick with the 15 if you already have the 15. But if you have, let's say, an 11 or a 12, definitely I would consider maybe even the 15 rather than a 16. You could find a 15 for less money. So that's my initial take on it. Missy let me be the guinea pig. She didn't upgrade hers yet, but I think she's going to. So, and the whole new iOS 18 is takes some getting used to because they've changed the way the photo library is now, and it's kind of strange. You have to get used to it, and you have to kind of customize it to the view that you want. So that's going to apply to everyone, not just people that decide to get the 16. But I do think the Pro Max, if you can handle that larger size, is a really nice way to go because you have a little bit more screen real estate to be able to, work on images and so forth. I hope that helped answer. Has anyone taken the plunge and bought the 16 yet? Or we have a small group, so we could use the raise your hand feature, right? Or great. Anything else, people?
No, not at the
Questions? No.
moment. No.
Okay, no problem. All right, great. So now we will do some demonstrations. You have to open it, don't you? Yep. Oh boy. What happened here? Stop that. Let me try this again. iPhone, share. It's telling us we have to
Oh, wait,
sync
here.
this. Oh, you have to do that. There you go. Sorry. Now it should pop up. There we go. Great.
So something different. All right, so now we're going to do the live demo. So we're going to live demo the 4 apps we just talked about, and then I'll also demo the Snapseed double exposure that we've been talking about at the end. So let's just start with Color Splash. So if you remember, let me close that. If you remember, the Color Splash icon is a green apple with a hand, and it's called Color Splash. So I'll just tap on that. Actually, I'm gonna
start anew.
Well, I already had an image in there. So, but if you have never opened it, it'll ask for access to your photos. And basically what you want to do first is go to the upper left-hand corner. You'll see the 3 dots with 3 lines. If you tap there, this is where you'll find your load image area. The nice thing is, if you've already been working, you can load a saved session, which is nice, but typically you'll just go to load image, which is at the top. So I'm going to tap load image, and then it's going to ask my photo library. So I'm going to tap that. And then I have a demo folder. So one thing you can't copy and paste in this app. So one thing I suggest is I keep a folder of images that I just work on, and then I clear that folder out when I'm done working with them. That way it's an easy way for me to go in and find them, because if you're like Charles and I, you have 40,000 photos, 100,000 photos, it's very hard to scroll through and find the one that I really want. So I'm going to tap on albums up there at the top. And now I have an actual demo folder. So I also have this folder down here called play. So that's the one where I put images in and out where I'm going to play. But for our purposes, I'm going to tap on demo folder. And of course, it's reordered them for me. So I'm going to tap on the little flower with the yellow, because we did that example earlier. And you can see the minute you put it in, it turns the entire thing black and white. So it does that automatically. You don't have to touch anything. So just to run through the next button of the question mark, there is a tutorial slideshow if you want to look at that. So you just tap on that blue area that says tutorial slideshow, but it's not really helpful. I don't think it's just going to show you what I'm going to demonstrate right now. But if you forget something, that's something that can help. And then it's got, some feedback and support and who they actually are. So I'm going to tap done. The next icon is that little red person looking icon. And that actually is going to show you where your finger is, or where your lines are of your unmasking the color. And I'll show you that in a moment. If you tap on it, see now it shows blue. So I can just run my finger down. So that's where I've let the color through. So if I tap that person off, you can see now it's green. So sometimes I don't leave it on, but if you're doing real detailed work, sometimes that can be helpful. I'll show you the toggle switch in a minute. The other cool thing is the paintbrush.
You want to undo what you just...
Oh yeah, I can. Yeah. So that the circle backwards arrow, that's undo. So if I just tap that, it undoes the last thing that I did. So I got rid of that. I'll talk about the little three toggles, which is the next icon in a moment. And lastly, that little paintbrush, if I tap on that, you can change the opacity of what the color you're bringing through. So if you want all the color to come through, which is typically what I want, you want to keep it on that blue dot and probably bump it all the way up. Oops. Or you can do less opacity. You can see there with the different, so it's kind of like, you can think of it as kind of like a spray paint nozzle, right? Like it's letting more through or less through when you're running your finger over the area you want. So I'm just going to tap on that paintbrush again to remove that. All right, now the three buttons you want to play with are at the bottom. So the one important one, the first one there is pan and zoom. So I'm going to tap on that and you can see it now, it's now lit up. That's how I know that's what I'm doing. Pan and zoom is where you want to be if you want to pinch and zoom your image. So this is important. Obviously, I have a big finger, and if I try to put my big finger over where that I want the color to come through, it's going to make a big mess. So I'm going to take my finger, index and thumb, and pinch and zoom to increase where I want to bring the color through. So I want to bring it through right in that heart. And now I'm going to click on the next button over, which is color. So when I tap on that, you see now that's lit up. And all I'm going to do is take my finger and do it right over where that heart is. And you can see that it's gone way up around the heart. So I've obviously gone outside the lines. This is like coloring back when we were in kindergarten. So I've gone outside the lines. So to reduce that, I'm going to go back to the gray button, which is next on the right there. And I can put my finger, I'm basically just coloring just on the edge there to get rid of that line on the edge. All right, that looks pretty good.
And now, if you want to put
Yeah,
color
if you want
back,
to put color back, you tap color again. I might make this a little smaller now. Whoops. It's kind of refined. You're gonna have
having a stylus
yeah.
helps.
Stylus does help. It can be tedious. But anyway, you get the point. So I'm gonna tap back on pinch and zoom, pan and zoom so that I can then make it back down to regular size. So that's kind of all I wanted to do for this image. You might have a lot more color you want to bring through, so this can be a very tedious process. But the cool thing is now, if I attach those toggle switch up there, which is the three lines with the three circles where the arrow is, I usually don't touch brightness, contrast, shadow, saturation, color temp, or gray tinting too much, but hue shift there, second to last at the bottom, if I slide that left and right, you can see now I can affect the hue. So that's how I was able to change that heart into that pinkish color. So you just kind of slide it along till you like the color. Leave it there. And then the other cool thing is that this gray tinting at the bottom can give you a more sepia look to it. So you can give it a more sepia tone look, or you can give it more of a blue, and then that's kind of more black and white. So you can actually affect the image, which is kind of fun, and give it a little bit different look. So I'm going to tap the toggles again to make that go away. And then just as an example to show you, if I attach the square with the little man up there, the second one from the left, you can see now that's where let me do pan and zoom.
Yeah.
You can see that's where I've got, so this is helpful when you're trying to maybe refine some more things if you want to make sure you haven't gone outside the lines, which that's showing I did a very poor job. So I would go back in and refine that if we had all the time in the world. So now let's say I'm going to tap that little man again. And so this is my final image. Let's say I really like that. I'm going to go back to those three lines with the three dots on the far left at the top. And now I can go to save image, which is the fourth one down from the top. So if I tap save image, it's now saving it to my camera roll. And that's pretty much color splash in a jiffy. All right. So
Questions at all about that? It's fairly straightforward.
You want to do, well, I'll just do waterlog next.
Yeah, why don't you?
All right, so next I'm going to do waterlog. So again, that was, remember the little whale with the umbrella called waterlog. So I'm going to tap on the app. And this one is actually really simple. So this is what pops up. It even gives you the instructions start here, which is always lovely. I like an app. So you're going to tap that little camera. And it's going to take you into your camera roll. So I like to tap photo library, which is down there on the bottom left. which will take me to my camera roll. Again, you can't copy and paste and put anything in here. So again, if you're like us and have a gazillion photos, you might want to keep them in an album. So I'm going to tap albums. And as I said, we're working in demo folders. So I've got it right there at the top. So I'm going to tap demo folder. And then of course it reordered them on me again. But I'm going to put, so this was an example of, my poppies. So I'm going to tap the poppies. There you go. Takes a second. So it's actually going to render it right away into something. And so you can see it starts with vibrant. So you can then just go the next one, bold. And you can see it gives you a little bit of a preview. You actually have to then tap anywhere in that rectangle of the preview to get it to render it big for you. And so you can essentially just go down the line of the various presets. I'm now tapped on its technical. Again, I'm going to tap on the preview. Technical kind of gives you some grid lines. I don't really ever like that one. Rainy is kind of fun, so I'm going to tap on rainy. And again, it puts it in there in the preview. Tap on the preview, and it's going to give you, so rainy is the one that gives you a little more line definition. So you can just kind of go down the list there of the various ones. You can see there's a bunch more to go through. But then here's what I was talking about in terms of brush size. So it's got small versus jumbo. So I'm going to tap on 12 jumbo first. It will re-render it again in that little preview. So if I tap anywhere on that preview, it's going to render it big for me. And you can see what it does there. So it gives you a little more definition there. I think small is with smaller brush strokes, but let's double check. I get them confused sometimes. So now I'm going to tap on 4, which is the complete opposite side. Then it gives you a little preview. I'm going to tap on that rectangle. And you can see here that's what 4 did. So you can see you lost some of the definition in the petal. So it gives you kind of different looks. So you can play with that scale there. I never do auto. Auto kind of just does its own thing. And then you can tap on border. So this is very limited. You can either have no border or border. So if I tap on that now, it's going to have a border, and that's all you can do. You can't adjust the border at all. So if I tap on that again, now it has no border. So if I tap on the little preview there, I'm back to no border. So you can see that it's a very kind of simple app. There's not a lot to it. Let's say I really like this one at the end. I'm going to go to that little square with the upwards arrow. If I tap on that, I want to save to photos, which is there in the left-hand corner. So if I tap on that, it's now saving the image to my camera roll.
And the real power here can come with masking, bringing it into Snapseed, or you could use Image Blender, but Snapseed is a great one. We'll show that at the very end too, how you can mask and also control blending modes and so forth and make things look painterly that way. Okay.
Yep. So Waterlog, pretty easy to use once you get the hang of it. All right, so lastly, I'll demonstrate Prisma, and then I'll turn it over to Charles to do Artista Impresso. But Prisma is the first one we talked about with the over 700 presets, artistic styles that it has. Again, it looks like a little triangle. This one, you do have to be connected online. So it will not work if you are not online. So like if you're in an airplane, I always get frustrated and there's no Wi-Fi. It's not going to work because it's connecting with the web to be able to stylize with all these different artistic styles. So I'm going to tap Prisma. It always pops up with this ad. You just tap close. And so this is the interface that will come up first. So you want to go to the plus symbol there to be able to upload images. So I had tapped the plus. Again, it's going to pop up my camera roll. And as we've talked a lot about, I'm going to go to albums, because I have my demo folder to be able to find my image. So I'm going to tap on demo folder. I'm going to scroll down to where I have my image, and I'm going to use Great Dixter because we've shown that a lot today. So I'm going to tap on the Great Dixter image. And actually here you can tap on multiple images. So I could tap on the one next to it. So any kind of thing you like, the minute I tap add, which is in the top right-hand corner there, it takes a minute. And now you can see it's imported them. So basically anything you import is going to stay in here unless you like delete the app off your phone and reinstall it, then you'll lose all the images. But the images that you import will stay here.
Is there a limit to how many images you could import?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I think you can import whatever. So now I'd like to work with the Great Dixter image. So I'm going to tap on that Great Dixter image. And it's going to say, well, now it wants me to process, so
Just
I don't want to do that. Okay, so it's actually, this is the interface, so it's loaded it right into Prisma. And now you can see down here, first you see style libraries, which is in the bottom left, and you can see now they have 700 plus styles. And the ones I've tagged as my favorite, which I'll show you how to do that in a minute, are there to the right of that. And so all I'm going to do is take my finger and slide it along. You can see all these different styles of ways you can add arts filter to your image. It goes on and on. And like I said, there's 700. This is a big rabbit hole you can go down. If it's a rainy, yucky day and you don't want to go out, you sit on your couch and you run through your styles. But how you put them there is if you tap on that style library, it actually takes you to the style library. And anything you have tagged as your favorite, which I'll show you how to do, is then going to be down there in that area at the bottom. And so it's got hundreds literally of styles that you can pick from. So you can see anyone that has that green check mark means that's down at the bottom for me to be able to work with. So you can see right now carousel just has the plus, it's not down there. But let's say I'd like to explore that one. So I'm going to tap the plus. It's going to say add to favorites. So I'm going to tap add to favorites. Now you see it has that green check mark. And now when I hit the X up there at the top left, there, now you can see carousel is right there at the bottom. So that's how to add them to the bottom. And you can take ones off and put them on as you like. And I think you can put them all there, but you have to do them one at a time, which is annoying. So just so you know that. All right, so I'm going to tap on, well, let's tap on carousel and see what it does. So the minute you tap on it, it says it's creating your artwork. So this is when it's talking to the web and when you need the connection. So I don't know that I'm crazy about that. Let's go to the next one. What's the next one? Ink.
And it's not saving any of these.
No, it's not. So you're just kind of looking. Ink, I don't know, Traveler. Well, that's kind of different. So
Takes time to
so you're just gonna go
discover ones that,
and you'll find ones that you just like a lot and you'll use them a lot. So we'll just leave it on Traveler for the moment. So now you can play with the buttons on the bottom. So if you see that first one with the paintbrush, when I tap on that one, this is the slider I was talking about. So now I've got 100% style intensity. So that means the whole image is kind of disguised with the filter. But if I slide that back, you can see that the actual house comes back into, and that's no style intensity, right? So that's the original image. And as I slide my finger back to the right, you can see it starts to add the style to the image. So that's kind of, I like that a little better than, you know, if I go all the way to the intense one. So you can actually play with the, I call it maybe the opacity of the style filter on your image.
and then
You can, I typically don't tap HD. I leave it at SD, but if you
want to
tap
have
HD,
higher definition, right?
Yeah, but it changes the image. So I'm going to tap it for you so you can see. Sometimes it adds, takes a minute. There, I don't like what that did. So again, you can play with the slider some more.
Interesting.
It's a little more detailed to me because the other one, when you do SD, it's more of a dot kind of matrix.
And does that mean it's lower quality, the SD? Probably would be.
Maybe, I don't know. I haven't figured that out, but it looks, I never liked the HD. Looks weird to me. But anyway, and then, so let's say you like this, you're going to tap apply. And then the next button is frames.
Wait, that one? No,
that's so that layers hasn't shown up. So I don't know how you get that one to show up. I think if you do multiple styles together, I haven't figured out that button yet. But the next one that's lit up is the frames. So if you tap that, literally it's just what it says. You're going to add a different frame to it. I typically don't add frames, but we could tap on one. And there you can see it's adding different frames. That's kind of fun. There we go. So well, let's leave a frame on there. The little picture image hasn't shown up, so we can't do anything with that just yet. So then the last one there, if you hit the toggle switch, I don't typically play here, but you can affect exposure, contrast, saturation, vibrance. It's got some temperature and tint, so you could actually do some different things to your image here if you so chose to. Typically, what I do is I would export it and then make any edits in Snapseed, rather than messing with it here. I'm gonna hit cancel. All right, so then the last thing to do would be to save. So you can see that there's a nice button up at the top that says save. And it will say, a lot of these apps now will ask you if you can have access to your entire camera roll or just limit access. I go back and forth, but I'll just do limit access for now.
And it saves it to the end of the camera roll, correct?
Yes. Well, it depends on which camera roll you're looking at, but yes,
Right.
it saves it to the end of your camera roll. So that's kind of Prisma in a nutshell. How that works. Any question? All right. So lastly, I keep all my Jixpix apps in one folder. As you can see, I'm going to tap on that. So you can see I have a collection of them because I like playing with them. And Charles is going to demonstrate Impresso. So I'm going to tap on that one.
Maybe we should.
I think he had it
We were
open.
testing
There
this
you go.
earlier. So when you open Impresso, you're going to see this. And this is, again, the way that all the Jixie apps work in terms of the interface. So pretty obvious here where we would start, where it says get photos. So I'm going to tap that. Oh, before I do that, maybe I should go over this info button here. So this is really useful here for if you're not sure what a lot of these different buttons do. This gives you a very good explanation here of all the different buttons that are in this app. And they do this same sort of info button with all their other apps too, Jixie Pix. So at the bottom or top, I'm sorry, you have this bar and you're able to have an undo arrow and also this dice thing, which basically is like rolling the dice, just a random effect on the image. So I rarely use that, but it is fun to just try that and see what effect it picks. And then on the bottom, there's a bar, of course, and you've got a top row and then this. And if you go to the little house, that's going to show you these little icons. So you have load the photo, crop or cut an area of the image, and info brings you back to that page here that we're on now. And then the save button is there where you would save your image. And then original is another button, of course, where if you want to hold that down and let go, you can see the original and compare it to the image you're working on. So that's kind of handy to have that. There is another way to do that, but I'll show you once I get in there. And then there is an adjustment tab, which is this third one over. The second one is a star, and that's going to show you all your different styles. Yeah, we can show that one. I don't know why yeah, these are not in order. Where's the style? Yeah, there's the star one, the next one over from the house. So you've got alla prima and en plein air. I'm really butchering that. I had 3 years of French. It's en plein air. Anyway, so anyway, these are just all the different painting styles. I'm not totally sure the difference between alla prima and en plein, but you can just tap each of those and play around with the different styles. So that's what that's for. So if we go back up here, so we did that under adjustments. So the third one over is this little paintbrush that is all about adjusting your brush size, enhancing color and the edge of your paper if you want that sort of spackle look. So you can play with those three sliders there. And then if we go down to canvas, that's the next little tab here. You can either do canvas or linen, and you can choose either one and then change the opacity of the canvas one or the linen one, whichever one you happen to be on with that. And then it's got an artistic finish tab, which is the one here that looks like a piece of paper being torn from
And that's when you're in the alla prima.
Yeah, it's only available when you're in the alla prima style. I'm not sure why, but anyway. So you can move this slider back and forth and it gives kind of a finished look. So there's a lot more subtle adjustments, I think, in this app versus some of the other ones that we demonstrated for you. With the palette tab, that's the one that looks kind of like a palette.
And that's when you're in.
That is only available when you're using the en plein air style. And anyway, so you can tap on these and see and control the strengths. And so it's all pretty intuitive, but this is a good sort of cheat sheet to go to that little info button because they do describe each of these little tabs in great detail. And speaking of detail, then if you come over to the very last one, we don't really use that too much. You can see here it's mostly with portraits, like you can sharpen the eyes and so forth. And you could even use it. They show an example down here of a landscape. If you wanted to emphasize a particular focal point in the image, but you could do this sort of thing in Snapseed with the blur tool, I think, maybe. But anyway, it's useful to know that it's here. And then let's see. The last thing is really just talking about saving the image. And we'll show you all of this stuff, the social media buttons and so forth, that if you wanted to. So that's kind of in a nutshell, all of those. I'm going to tap done. And then now we're going into the app itself. So I would tap on get photo. So we're going to go into albums, just like we did with all the other apps, and this demo folder. And of course, they're reordered, but there's the image I was mentioning earlier that I was going to demonstrate. So immediately when you bring this in, it is going to show a border around the image and choose a border. You can ignore that by sometimes I'll go right away to that fourth one over right here. And or is it, oh, really?
Third one.
I thought it was. Oh, sorry. Painted edge. Yeah. So I can move that and get rid of it if I wanted, right off the bat if I want. But that's by default kind of what it's doing to the image when you first bring it in. And if I go way over to the right, you can see it increase the width of it as well as how painted that edge is. But anyway, so we'll leave it at very small amount like that. And you can use your thumb and forefinger to pinch and zoom, and I do often do that. It's hard to tell what is 100% here and what isn't, but essentially I'll just kind of get it zoomed in to a point where I want to see detail and what it's doing. And then I will go first to this little star. So that's the second one next to the house. I took a detour and took you into this one just because of that edge there. But anyway, normally I would go straight to star, and then here's where you have your two sort of trays of styles. But you can see if I tap on different ones what it's doing. And again, I can control the strength of each of these if I wanted. So anyway, and you'll probably start realizing which ones are your favorite right off the bat. But sometimes it does really depend on the image itself that you're working on.
And sometimes, a lot of times,
So,
I'll just say it's not going to save over the original. So I'll just save ones. And then at the end, I'll go through and look and pick out my favorite one.
right. So the beauty here is if as I go along, if I do like certain ones and I want to just maybe look at them side by side later, I could go back to the house after I've selected a given style and then tap save. And so I'd have like maybe 4 or 5 versions if I wanted. Um, so that's that. And then I'll do one or two in here just to show. I'm not sure of I mean, that's kind of interesting. So it's really kind of fun to just play around with this and see what you can get. So I'll just pick, well, not that one, kind of garish. Let me just find one that's
Good.
okay to look at. Well, let me go back here. I liked some of these. Anyway, all right, let's just go with that one. So before saving it, if I go to the next little tool, this is the one we were in before, and you know what painted edge does, so I won't even touch that slider at the moment. But you've got brush size, so I can control the size of the brush. Like if I go way up, see how it's much sort of fuzzier looking. So I can play around with that. I can even control the bristle depth. If I go way up on that, it's a lot of bristle or a little bristle, and then enhancing colors. Rarely will I mess with that one too much, although if it was way too warm or cool, I might mess with that. But you can also make refinements in Snapseed on all the colors too later. And then if I keep going across here at the top of these various filters, this is the canvas versus linen. So canvas strength, and you can see if I pinch, you really see this even better, like a lot of canvas versus hardly any canvas. So that's kind of a fun one to play with. And then if I chose to make it look as if it's printed on linen, I can do that and also control the canvas strength there. So versatility. And then if I go next to the little piece of paper being torn, this is the one where since I use the alla prima style, I can add an artistic finish to the image by sliding here. I'm not quite sure what it's doing to it, but anyway, you
It's
can,
giving it more of a painterly.
yeah, just artistic finish. I don't know. Anyway, and then I rarely use that ellipsis, like I said. But if you're doing a portrait or something, and it's a person or a landscape, even where you want to draw the eye to a certain part of you could use that one. So I'll
And by
go.
changing,
Go ahead.
sorry, by changing that detail brush size, that's how so you would,
Yeah, you can
the
slide.
detail brush, you slide that, and then you can see that it's adding, it'll change the more
There's like
detail up
less detail.
here. And then you use the add detail and delete detail.
I
So
guess
that's a way
it's
you,
sort of sharpening. It's like sharpening in a way,
yeah,
but selective sharpening.
yeah.
And if I pinch, like I think I can control, well, maybe not. Yeah, you have to tap on one of these circles and be able to really, then I could move that whole thing over. And so anyway, that's something I don't use as often, but it's there for you if you wanted it. And so if I go back to the little house, and let's just say I like that one, again, just to review, you go to the save button next to the last one there and save it. The share is the one we didn't really talk about yet, but that's where, you could save it that way too. That's another way to save it, or email it or whatever. So that is there. And then the last thing we didn't cover is that little button in the top left corner. And that, if I press and hold, shows me the before and after of the image. You can also see it down here under, where was it? There was one of these where you can do it the same thing to show the before and after, but that's to me the easier way of seeing the before and after. So that's kind of in a nutshell that app. Any questions about any of this? I think the last thing we wanted to show you is how you can combine maybe like a texture with a fairly straightforward image of, in this case, it's like flowers in the vase, right? That
Yeah.
you're going to show them.
So I'll show you, I think
And
we have
make something look texturized and impressionistic, so to speak. And this involves using the app called Snapseed, which I think we've talked about it multiple times and even demonstrated it a few times for you.
Can I
Yeah.
just hold you there?
yeah.
Just
Yeah,
one moment.
sure.
Elizabeth would like to know, and I'll ask it to you both individually, if you had to choose one of the 4 apps that you've showed us tonight, which would be your favorite?
So I guess I would think about what your style, like if there's something that you like the look of, if you like the look of a watercolor painting, how, it depends on what you might like to do most with your art. So to me, I find I'm drawn to certain things at certain times. Like I really love color splash because I know I have a lot of images where I want to dry your eye to one spot. If you're a frustrated watercolor painter, maybe waterlog has a look that you like. So I would suggest thinking about what you as an artist and how your vision, if you like more oil color painting looks to things, then Artista Impresso is probably for you. If you like kind of more really abstract, wacky stuff, Prisma might be for you. So I would think about what your vision and your artistic and what you're drawn to and start there.
personally, for me, I just am a big fan of the Jixie Pick apps. So the Impresso one and some of their others are kind of fun. And once, like I said, you've learned to use one, it's fairly easy to apply that knowledge to the other apps. And there's just such a wide array there of, I mean, you could do watercolor with Jixie Picks. You don't have to use Waterlog. Um,
True.
so yeah, it just kind of depends is the answer. Like the answer to most photography questions, right? It all depends. But they do sell, I think it was what, 200 US dollars for the whole bundle of apps. And that may be overkill, like just maybe get one or two right now, and you could eventually add others later. Um, so hopefully that helps
Excellent.
answer. Good question, Elizabeth.
Yeah, there's another one from Gwen. Is it more difficult to use the apps if the photo is taken in the landscape mode?
No.
Very good question. It works well
No, it
with
works
portrait.
both way with both. Yeah.
It maybe every image we showed you today was in
Maybe.
landscape. I don't know, but that's a very good observation if it was.
So it's not any more difficult.
No, they
No.
work the same, and it'll load it in however you took it. So if you
Right.
took it landscape, it'll load landscape. So yeah, it's fairly easy to work.
And there was one app, it was very much in passing when we were going over Color Splash, I believe, where it did say camera, where you could take an image.
So
Is
you'll
that the
notice.
one where you can
No,
shoot?
well, you'll notice anytime you open up any of these apps, so I'll just tap on Waterlog again. When you go to like load your image, so here again, the camera is how we're going to load our image. Every one of these apps will ask you if you want to open your camera. So in
Right.
theory, you could shoot with all of these apps in the field, but you're not going to then stand in the field and play. So to me, these aren't shooting apps. I'm going to use them for my photo library, but you will see the option to open your camera in all of these apps.
And this one I noticed does have a paste option. We
Oh,
mentioned
yeah,
that.
it does.
So certain
Oh, that's
ones
new.
may have, yeah, it might be new to.
Oh, we'll have to play with that. See, we learned something new. That's new. See,
Yeah.
and apps are always updating themselves. So
Right. Yeah. So this was the waterlog
yeah.
one, right? Yeah. Great. Any
Lovely.
other?
That's all for now. Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to do two Snapseed demonstrations using the double exposure to get your juices flowing in terms of creativity. So Snapseed, I think we've talked about before, but it's the editing app, so shown here with the little green leaf, and it is free, which is great. It's like having Photoshop on your phone, and it is for Android and iPhone users. So I'm going to tap on Snapseed. Oops, there's always an image in there. So if there wasn't an image in there, or if there is one now, I'm going to tap open, which is the top left-hand corner, and it does take a few seconds. So it's going to pop up. Now, I don't have anything to paste because I didn't copy anything, but I've already put my images in that demo folder. So I'm going to tap on open from device. And again, just like what we talked about, you can see there's a camera option. So you could technically shoot with this out in the field, but you're not going to then stand there and, edit your photo in the field. So I don't know why they do that, but you're going to open from device. And then again, it takes you to this look. I'm going to go to albums, my demo, trusty handy demo folder. And down here at the bottom, I'm going to tap on the little flower in the vase image that I think we've talked about before. So this is an image that I've already edited. This isn't the original, but I've edited this to where I like it. So I'm going to tap use.
Sorry to interrupt, but that I think is in general a good workflow for any of these apps where you're doing the post-processing. Get it right first in Snapseed, then take it into, Waterlog or Impresso or whatever.
And also for your double exposure. So I edit everything I want, have it ready, and then I'm ready to do the double exposure. So I'm going to tap use up there in the top right-hand corner. Going to put it in there. Okay, now I want to do a double exposure. So I'm going to go down to tools. And you may have to scroll. Here I can see it, but if you don't see it, take your finger. There may be another row to scroll up. I'm going to tap double exposure. And now you'll see this interface. What you want to do first is go to the little mountain with the plus symbol down there in the bottom left. It takes you back into your camera roll. Again, I have everything in my trusty rusty demo album. So I'm going to tap albums, demo folder, scroll down because it reversed them all. And then you'll never see wallpapers, rocks, gravel sidewalks the same way again. So this the image that I'm going to pull up is actually a wallpaper in an Italian restaurant in actually England when we were on our way home from the English Garden tour. And I saw this fabulous wallpaper, so I was just taking pictures down the stairs when I would always take your camera to the restroom with you, because you never know what you're going to see on the wall. So that image where you see right next to the flower where the arrow is, that's actually wallpaper from an Italian restaurant. So I'm going to tap on that. And now you can see it's put it right over the top. So the first thing to do is tap the next button over, which is the little palettes. And these are your blending modes. So you can see here it's done dark in blending mode. There's the one next to it's light in blending mode. Then it's got default. I never usually use additive, which is kind of because that kind of washes it all out, but you never know.
Interesting.
Subtract, and then overlay. Actually, overlay looks
So a little bit like the blending modes you would find in Photoshop.
Yeah, so I kind of like overlay on this. So now the next thing you can do is tap that little water droplet, and that's going to allow you to adjust the opacity. So full opacity, just the background, versus all the way to the left is just my image. So I kind of go up until I see where I like it. Let's say I like it maybe there. And then if you're happy and you know it, you hit your happy check mark on the right there. All right, now the other cool thing is you can actually, let's say I like the texture on the back, but I don't want it on my flowers. So I'm going to go to the little squares with the backwards arrow. I'm going to tap on that. And what you want to go into is view edits, which shows you all the layers of your photo. So I'm going to tap view edits. And here you can see, because I saved, I'll tell you in a minute how to save it, but I've saved the previous image. It's got all of the things that I did to edit this image before I did the double exposure. So you want to go into the double exposure. I'm going to tap that. Now the toggles, if you have the little toggles there on the right, that's going to take you back into that tool so you can play with the opacity. You can either add a different texture on there if you wanted to. But what we want to do is hit that paintbrush. So I'm going to tap that.
Masking.
And now you can see it's essentially taken the texture off, but I would like to paint the texture in everywhere except on the flower vase. So I'm just going to take my finger and run it over. And you can see now I've got the eye highlighted. So that's showing you, I'm going to tap that, it'll go off. That'll show you that where the masking is happening. So I'm going to tap it off just for now so you can watch the texture come back. So I'm just running my finger over the image where I'd like the texture to come back in. Again, I'm not going to put it over where the flower is. And again,
you would probably pinch and get it just right.
Just more refined.
Yeah.
We had a lot more time. But anyway, you can see, so I've now avoided the flower. So I'm going to tap that eye again just to show you. So you can see I've pretty much avoided having the masking there. But you can see I've missed here on the edge. See that on the left edge? So I can run my finger up there, and now I've redefined that. And I missed this little spot here, so I can do that. So the red is kind of nice if you have a subtle texture, which we kind of do. The other cool thing you can do is you see down here where there's the 100%. So you can either go back into the tool and use that opacity slider, or you can brush it in elements of 20 degrees of 25. So I'll just bump it down to 25, hitting that downward arrow, and I'll show you an example. So I'm just going to paint my finger. So you can see, so there I'm bringing it through at 25%. So that's kind of good if you want to feather it or if it looks too like a sharp definition. I'm just going to bump that back up to 100 so that I can fill that in because I don't want that there. All right, so this is how I like it. I'm happy. I'm going to hit my happy check mark. And you can sort of see a little bit. Did you see it? It kind of dipped and it went away. So now I've taken the texture out from where the flowers are. So that's just a quick way to do a double exposure and combine textures.
So files of textures, great thing to just
I have a whole
textures
folder.
and put them all in a folder called textures. And that way you can grab one of those and play with any image really and add texture. And so that is a very simple way of doing impressionistic iPhone photography without having to buy any apps because Snapseed's free. And you just would use the blending modes there.
All right, and I'm just going to show you export real quickly down there at the bottom right. And you want to save a copy. So saving a copy saves all those layers. The top one save is going to overwrite the image. You don't want to do that. So always save a copy, which is the middle one there. All right. And then one last thing I wanted to show you with double.
And sorry, that means that if you were to close that image and reopen it, you would be able to go up here to this little layer stack icon again and view all the layers and play with it again. It won't, flatten them, in other words. If you just hit save, I think it overwrites the original and flattens it. So
no, but yeah, and flatten definitely flattens it, which is the last one.
Yeah.
So one other creative technique you can do also with double exposure. So I'm going to tap open again. Sometimes Snapseed's slow. So again, I don't have anything copied, so I'm going to tap open from device. Albums, because I put it in my demo folder. I'm going to tap on this image here. So this is a way
from last week.
It is.
The Aspens here in Colorado.
I'm going to just close out of that for a moment and show you the final image.
So remember, those of you who've heard me talk about impressionism with your big camera, we were talking about the Orton effect, where you have one image sharp, one that's out of focus a little bit, and it gives it a glow to the image. This is a way to do it in the phone after the fact, after shooting a sharp image.
So this is a way, if you just take a sharp image with your real camera or your phone and you don't do anything else with it, this is the result that you can get. And so how to do this is you would bring the image into Snapseed, which I just showed. You would edit it as you normally would, with the saturation, get it to where you want it. And then what you would do is tap Tools, and you tap Lens Blur, which is down here at the bottom towards the right-hand side. And you can see, basically, the first thing I do is go to transition. So I bring the transition all the way down to 0. You can see that I'm just sliding it so that there's no transition. I'm then going to take my fingers and I'm going to pinch the actual bubble so that it's all the way to that blue. So you can see there's only a tiny little spot that's in focus. And I drag that all the way down to the corner here. So the whole image is blurry. Then I'm going to hit my happy check mark. Sometimes now I might go into tools and maybe tune image. So I might, bump up the ambiance to make it a little bit more vibrant there. So I like that. So I'm going to hit my happy check mark. So you might edit it a little bit more. And now you can see that there is a tiny in focus in the corner there. So basically what I do is tap Tools, Healing, and I just run my finger over that little area, and bloop, that made it blurry. All right, so now we've got a completely blurry image. Hit my happy check mark. And now you can actually go into Tools, Double Exposure, and then again, this interface comes up that we just talked about. You're going to tap that mountain with the plus. Again, I have everything in my handy demo album, so I'm going to go to my albums demo folder. And now I have the sharp image. Okay, so the sharp image comes up. Now I'm going to go to the second paddles. And now you can play with, default, lighten. I think sometimes darken looks best with this. So you can see it gave it a little bit of a glow, but now I can go to the opacity button there, which is the little water droplet, and I can play a little bit here, bringing some sharp back in versus, so you can kind of give it that little bit of a glow look to it, which is kind of cool. I like it there. So I'm going to hit my happy check mark.
There is also a tool called Glamour Glow built into Snapseed under Tools, and you could play with trying to do it that way, but this gives you much more control.
Yes. And then let's say the other cool, so if you could leave it like that, that looks kind of cool there. The other cool thing you could do is if I go into my edits up there with the little squares with the backwards arrow, view edits, go back into double exposure. And if I use the paintbrush there in the center, I can actually paint back in the sharp tree. So you can actually make things sharper in some points if you wanted to. So that would take a little finagling there, but you could do that for sure.
You have to adjust it.
You'd have to adjust it, yeah. But you could do something like that, which is kind of cool. So again, it gives you a lot of versatility when you're trying to do some of these creative techniques. And another thing you could do if you wanted to expand, so you can move, I go back into double exposure and the toggles, which takes me back into that particular app. I did this kind of backwards because I put the blurry one on the bottom and then the sharp one as my second layer, but you can make the image bigger or smaller. So if you were going to do this, you'd want to invert them. You'd want the blurry one on second because you could make the blurry one slightly bigger, which would give it a different glow look to it. But the cool thing is you can move around that second image. So you can get some different looks with that. So I'll just leave it there and then you can see it does some funky stuff there. So anyway, there's the you have no limits when you want to have your creativity with this double exposure stuff in Snapseed. So I'll leave it at that and we will take any questions.
Just one written one, then we'll ask if anyone else has got anything. If you buy an app for an iPhone, do you also get a license for the iPad as well?
Oh, good question. I think so
Sometimes
in some
it
cases.
depends on the app.
Yeah, other ones may make you purchase. If anybody has experience with that, feel free to type it in the chat. We just don't do a lot of our editing on the iPad, but yeah, I think in some cases they may make you buy the iPad version as well.
Like I know Distressed FX is when you go on your iPad, it converts everything that you've already done. So it depends on if there's a separate iPad app, it might make you purchase it, but a lot of times I believe they're if you have it on your phone and put it on your iPad, they talk together and you don't have to purchase it a second time. But it depends on the app developer.
Once again, the answer is it depends.
So I don't know if anyone else wants to open their microphone and actually ask a question.
Yeah, we've got a nice small group here.
I have a question, if I may, please. I was following you with Snapseed to do the double exposure. But when I tried to put the second image on, it wouldn't allow it. It disallowed the second image. Is
I
there
wonder
any
if
restriction?
maybe in your initial settings for Snapseed, did you say allow all photos? You know how sometimes it pops up with that. Okay.
Yeah. I
She's
just
Googling it.
wondered.
Missy's Googling it.
I just wondered because sometimes I take things in RAW.
Sure.
So maybe, maybe the image I tried to stick on the top, the texture I'd taken in RAW or something, but it just wouldn't. So I lost out really because I couldn't follow you beyond that because I'm going.
Right, sure. That is frustrating. Well, at least you've got the recording now, though.
Oh, yes.
But Missy's Googling it. Does it
If there's a reason why, I'll look and see if the image I was putting over was a RAW.
Anybody else experience that or?
Yes, me. Yeah, and it was because I was using the raw files, particularly if they were quite large. So even if you just do a basic exposure adjustment, something little, just to stop it being completely raw, then I found that helped when I imported it into Snapseed.
Okay. And did you use the built-in Apple editor for that raw?
Yes, I did.
image?
I did.
Yeah,
Although I've got Lightroom, I've got quite a few different apps on my phone.
Sure.
But I would use it in the Apple built-in program. Yeah.
Sure. Right. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so that would be the suggestion for that then. And the other thing you could do too is you could edit both images that you wanted to put in Snapseed first, save them separate, and then if it's opened it to Snapseed to do regular edits, it should put it in there for double exposure.
I'm still getting the could not load. Really strange.
We'll
So I need to look at that then. Don't worry.
Janet. Yeah, that's helpful though to us because other people may run into that again. We'll have to do some digging
too.
Yeah.
I know it's Liz here. I know it says double exposure. Will it take a third exposure?
Yes, you can keep adding. So you would do double exposure, and then you would do, once you finagle that and have that image the way you like it, then you do tools, double exposure, and you can add another image. You can keep layering things on top of it as much as your heart desires. So I've actually
Gets a
done
bit
things
tedious, but
where I've
yes.
kept turning them. So you can turn and then you get kind of some patterned looks to things. And you
Yeah.
can endless.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or go ahead, Melanie.
My question is, when do you play and how long do you play for?
And the answer is it depends, right?
Do you
No,
sit in front of the TV and do it?
Missy likes, well, waiting for flights and on the
Yeah.
plane and things like that. Same for me. But I tend to not do it in front of the telly, but you can, or a rainy day kind of thing. But yeah, everybody kind of has their own.
But it
If you're
sounds
in the
like you're
mood,
playing all the time.
A lot, yeah.
fair amount. But it is nice that it's always with you in the palm of your hand. You can just access it at any time. So yeah, that's one of the beauties, of course, of phone photography.
Yeah.
I did have just at the end here, if you don't mind,
Or did you have an
oh,
Yeah,
just
I
sorry,
was just going
somebody.
to add, a Snapseed. I just love, 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 love it. And you asked when to use it in a doctor's surgery, dentist surgery,
There
when
you
to.
go.
And honestly, I did a whole challenge in August. It was a 30-day challenge, and I chose to use editing apps on my phone. And I just found I was always in Snapseed.
nice.
And you can import, as Missy said, pictures you've taken on your big phone, on your big camera, and then you've
Sure.
got JPEGs of them, and you can. And funnily enough, I don't know whether I was in the same restaurant as you, but I went to the restroom and I found that wallpaper and I took
Oh,
it
how
back.
funny.
I've got
That's
3 pictures. And I
wonderful.
use it so much in layering. It's just amazing. So yeah,
Yes. Yes.
absolutely love that app. And the double exposures, you can just keep adding and adding and adding, and the blend modes make such a difference to the look. And it
Yeah.
really teaches you what the blend modes do and how they work. So I'm a big advocate for it. Definitely promote
And you'll
it.
never look at the world the same because you're like, ooh, I can
No,
put something in that window,
you
or oh, look
don't.
at the texture.
I love
But
it.
even if you never really master the double exposure part in Snapseed, it is kind of the foundational bread and butter app, I guess I like to call it, that just for basic edits to an image, it does magic. So yes,
Yeah, it's like Lightroom. It's like Lightroom on your phone. It's just
that's right.
follows a very similar logic.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
Anything else? I just wanted
You
to
did talk about the stylus. Do you use those or do you do your finger?
usually finger, but if I'm feeling in the mood, I will use a stylus, but usually it is my finger, but I make sure I pinch pretty
Yeah.
large, if I'm
Yeah.
doing an edge of something or whatever.
Mm.
Um, but yeah,
Sorry, you were going to do something else, were you?
that's okay. I just we kind of did a little bit of this before, but I've got more information about our upcoming workshops here if anybody would like to just see. But again, a lot of you may already be on the email list. We don't share with third parties, but you could scan that QR code and get on our email list. And then we have these little pamphlets. We probably should convert them to PDF so that we don't have to ship them overseas, but they're little cheat sheets or guidelines for using both editing apps and then another pamphlet we did on shooting apps here. So those are on the website, as are 3 ebooks that we have there. And then this is the part I wanted to get to because we've sort of refined some of this. So the macro tabletop type indoor macro stuff is happening over a weekend in the Atlanta area. And then for you guys, we have the Netherlands and also Tuscany with optional extension to Venice. And these will be workshops where, yes, we will talk about iPhone photography, but definitely the use of big girl, big boy cameras as well, and all of the various techniques with those. And we only need one more spot for Tuscany to make that one go. So if anyone's interested, just email us. And then Ireland, we're going to be in Ireland in June. And then another one that just came on the radar, we've just signed the contract to teach at a place called Madeline Island School of the Arts in Wisconsin. And this will be a whole week long deep dive into iPhone photography in person if you wanted to do this. And we've invited our friend Rad Drew, who's an amazing iPhone photographer here in the US, to join us. So it'll be three instructors, Missy, myself, and Rad. There are cabins and gourmet food, and it's a lovely sort of location. So that's happening for a whole week in July. And then we're also going to be in the Northwest doing garden photography in Seattle area in August, and then the Chicago Botanic Garden. If any of you know Sue Bishop, she is one of the instructors that's going to be at the Out of Chicago conference in Illinois there for, again, almost a week there. And then we'll be up in Canada at this amazing garden called Kingsbrae. That will be more of a retreat, kind of a holistic retreat, combining meditation with photography and things like that. And then the fall color, once again, we can't not do fall color here in Colorado. It's beautiful. And then finally, another retreat happening in Hawaii in November. That's quite a long distance for you guys.
Far.
But anyway, I just wanted to share that because we hadn't really finalized our workshops the last time we spoke. So, anything else? Anyone?
Very envious of your life, really. Going to all those
I would
wonderful
think
places.
it's not worth them having a house, really.
I know. Someone,
Exactly.
yeah.
Cats want to disown us. That's why she sits on me when I'm home. It's like, you're home. I love you. Don't leave again.
That's right. Actually, compared to some of my colleagues, that's a light schedule, I think. That's crazy. Great. And we will be back at 26 in the UK doing, the garden tour. So that will happen May. It's always in kind of late May.
Wonderful.
And
wonderful.
so Janet, the only other thing I think for your Snapseed dilemma, if it's not working, the only other suggestion I would have is maybe delete the app and download it. Sometimes that fixes the problem.
Okay, thank you. Because
Yes.
I've tried some more while we've been talking and I haven't got any of them.
And I'll keep looking too. I don't know if it
Does the same thing happen even if it's not a raw file?
I've tried several there and I'm still having the same problem. So I'll think delete the app is a good idea.
Yeah,
Thanks.
try that. Yeah. Sometimes that's the end all be all fix.
And
It's
you
like
have
banging the top of the telly.
Exactly.
That's right. You have my email address, so email if you still are
thanks.
having problems.
Keep looking.
Yeah. Great.
Wonderful.
Well,
That was great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having us.
So I'm going to just bring it to a close. I went to Out of Chicago, the tutorial on the other day. I can't think, Friday, I think.
Yes, they had a
And
webinar.
Stephanie Johnson was on there, and she said, I was inspired by Charles Needle.
Oh, really? I did not see that session. That's wonderful. I look forward to meeting her at the Out of Chicago conference in Illinois. Yes.
And I just put in a plug too. So if obviously traveling to Chicago is a long way for you guys during the live event, but they do have, it's in February, right? They have an online event, and that is a big bang for your buck. They have, I forget how many instructors, but it's lots of instructors. You get the videos for a full year. And because you can't possibly watch everything the whole weekend, but it's a whole weekend of just online. They bring all these amazing instructors and
have quite a few worldwide presenters as well. Some people from Scotland and all over.
And pretty much runs the gambit of anything you could think of for photography wise, landscape, flowers, artistic impressionism stuff. So there's a lot of good value there.
So if you're not already familiar, it's outofchicago.com, I think. It's just there.
Yeah.
In February and I'll be presenting as one of the many presenters. I think they have about 100 instructors or something. But it's about 3 days of, you can watch recordings, and if you can't attend all of it, nobody can. And it's a great way to spend a weekend in the winter and be inspired.
Sounds great. So thank you for showing us those 4 apps, which I can honestly say I didn't know about any of them. I'm very aware of Snapseed, but they were all new to me. So that's brilliant. And I think we've learned a lot. And we're all going to go and play now, aren't we?
Excellent. Great. Good.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And we look forward to welcoming you back later in the month to do the Zoom, the close-ups.
Yes.